This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. A Freilichem Memorial Day here in the United States of America. You know why they gave Memorial Day? So that we have more time to learn. So we bless this great country that gives us the ability to learn and practice Torah mitzvahs. Okay, so we're continuing in the Sefer Devorah. And one second here. Okay. We're continuing in the Sefer Devorah. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter in letter Chav Gimel, talking about the importance of regular study of Musar. He's bothered. Why is it that the Yetzer Hara is so successful? And even though, Baruch Hashem, there are many people who learn all kinds of limudim, and I want to invite everyone, Bez Hashem, tonight we're starting in the Daf HaShavua, we're starting Masechta Yevamos. So we find a lot of limud Torah, Daf Yomi, Daf HaShavua, Dirshu, Mishnah Berurah, everything. Everybody's learning. And Musar, the Yetzer Hara, is so successful in getting people not to learn Musar. There's so many movements of limud, and Musar is always lagging behind. Musar has no Geshmaka program. There's no grand Siyam Mesilas Yesharim Chavos Havavos. They've never been successful in getting anything exciting going with Musar. What is it? Why is the Yetzer Hara so successful in combating Musar? Says that Rabbi Yisrael, Ein zois ki im atzas hayetzer hameluma b'melchama. The Yetzer Hara knows his customers. He says, look, learn Daf Yomi. It might take you many, many, many years until that learning makes a real impact, that it fights me. Because the Yetzer Hara knows that the main tavlin to the Yetzer Hara is not just Torah in general, but it's the specific antidote, is the Musar v'chol megam moisav hurak lahasar mlafanenu kli milchamtenu hi limud ha-musar. In other words, if you could go to Yaakov, how you doing? When I was in London, I went with Josh. We went to the Churchill war rooms, and that's where Churchill plotted every step that he took in World War II. So if we would go to the Yetzer Hara's war rooms, what is the Yetzer Hara scheming against? What's he trying to plan to stop us from doing? In his war rooms, he spends very little time trying to get us to stop from learning. His main emphasis is make learning Musar as unattractive, unexciting, and uninteresting as possible. This way, Klal Yisrael learns as little Musar. You know what? We'll let them learn a blot a day even. We'll let them learn Iyun. They could learn Daf HaShavua. They could Chazer, as long as they don't learn Musar. Because Hurak lahasar malafanenu kli milchamtenu hu limud ha-Musar uvezeh yeser oisanu lefanav eMashiach. If without Musar, the Yetzer Hara has us tied up with nobody to save us. So in other words, if you were to picture a Jew who is involved in Limud HaTorah, what line am I up to? I'll let you know as soon as I get up to it. If you would picture a Jew who's involved in Limud HaTorah and doing mitzvahs and doesn't learn Musar, and you were drawing a cartoon of this Jew, you would draw him as tied up in the clutches of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara has him. He could be learning Gemara, Rashi Tosfos, Be'iyun, 3 hours straight, and yet the Yetzer Hara has him in his clutches because he's not learning Musar. Okay. So even that, we have to learn something now. Fine. So the Torah Devorah is talking about the fifth Middah. The fifth Middah is Hechzik la'ad. What is the Middah of Hechzik la'ad? I'm sort of translating outside on page Yud Daled, page 14, and then we'll read the next paragraph together. This is a new Middah, that a person could persist in sin, but Hashem does not persist in His anger. Meaning a person's doing an Aveira, and Hashem's getting angry, and Hashem is persisting in His anger. And Hashem's Middah has two parts to it. First of all, God does not persist in His anger, and even when He does, it's not eternal. At a certain point, God says, enough is enough, I stop being angry. Like we find in the times of Yeravam ben Yoash, that the Rebbeinu Shalom, despite the fact that they continued to serve Avodah Zarah, Hashem restored Eretz Yisrael to them. Why? They were continually serving idols. Because of this Middah of Hechzik la'ad apoy. There's a midah where at a certain point Hashem weakens His anger, even though we continue to sin, and Hashem says, let me try a new approach. And the new approach is, maybe if I show kindness despite the fact that they sin, maybe that will get them to do tshuva. And we read last time, Rav Goldberg in an amazing ha'ara quotes the Middah Eliyahu, who understands that this in fact was the phenomenon of Klal Yisrael getting access to Eretz Yisrael. Despite the fact that there were many, many years, there were 6 years of terrible charoinaf, where the Rebbeinu Shalom was displaying a fierce and a harsh, seemingly anger to Klal Yisrael, but nevertheless, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us and showered us this great chesed. Why? Does that mean we did tshuva? Does that mean we improved? Says the Middah Eliyahu, no. Maybe the Rebbeinu Shalom was exercising the midah of lo hechzik lo ad apai, where the Rebbeinu Shalom says, okay, the charoinaf is not working, now it's time for chesed. So let's read this paragraph, page tezvav. V'zu midah ru'uya la'adam. This is a fitting trait for a person to adopt. Lehisnahig ba'im chaverav, to conduct himself with his friend. Afilu shehu rashoy l'haychiach b'yisurim es chaveroi. Even when it's permitted to reprimand sternly your friend. Oy es banav, or your children. V'hei misyasrim, and they are being rebuked by it. Meaning they're paying attention to what you're saying, although they're not changing their ways. It's not like they're ignoring you entirely. Maybe Rav Goldberg wants to know what is the meaning of V'hei misyasrim. He's sort of questioning, what does it mean, V'hei misyasrim? Maybe what it means is, if they're ignoring you, obviously you need to rethink your mahalach. But they're not ignoring you, they're taking it to heart, but they're not changing. So perhaps you should persist in your anger? No. Not for this reason should you increase your rebuke. Don't maintain your anger, even though you got angry. Meaning that he's saying this is a chinuch technique. You got angry at your child. He continues to do something wrong. At a certain point, you need to let up, even though the child is not letting up. Ela yivat lenu, cease your anger. V'lo yachzik lo arapai, don't maintain it. Gam imhu af hamutar la'adam, even if it's a permitted kind of anger. Rav Goldberg asks a very profound question, and that is, we see the opposite of this in the Chumash. In the Toichacha we find, it says, V'yem ad eile lo yisishma'u li, if you still did not listen to me, v'yasafti li yasreschem, I'll rebuke you more. V'yem telchu imi keri, and you don't want to listen to me, I'll punish you sevenfold. And if you still don't listen to me, I'll really give it to you. And we don't find at any point in time where the Rebbeinu Shalom says, okay, and now it's chesed time. We don't find such a thing. So why is this midah not found in the Torah? So Rav Goldberg explains, based on a comment that we quoted from Rabbi Solomon, that there are actually two sets of the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim. There are the 13 Midos found in the Chumash, and the 13 Midos found in the Navi. And Rabbi explains the difference between the two sets, which, by the way, the Zohar calls the Midos Tata and the Midos Ilah. The ones in the Navi and Micha are called the Ilah. The Rabbi says the ones found in the Chumash are the Darkei Hashem, which could be observed through one's own seichel. These were the Yud Gimel Midos that Avram Avinu comprehended. The Midos of the Navi are Midos which are only given over through Messiah. The Midos discussed in Talmud Devorah. No one would ever know on their own that when we sin, we create a monster and God has to provide for the monster. Or no one would understand on their own that when a Jew suffers, Hashem feels it acutely. These midos are only known through tradition. And therefore it's true that the midah of lo hechzik lo arapai is not really found in the Chumash, because the Chumash is dealing with what we observe mitzad sechleinu. But the additional revelation of the Navi is that there are even more supreme extent of these Yud Gimel Midos Rachamim. Now, where do we find an example of this? And this really perhaps even answers our own question. This maybe answers Rav Goldberg's question. That is, we do find an illustration of this, not from Hashem, but in terms of what He expects of us. The pasuk says, Ke'ein shapirsho, similar to what we find in the Chumash. Ki sira chamar soinacha, if you see the donkey of your enemy, roivetz tachas masai, crouching under his burden. Upershu, and Chazal explain, Mahi hasina hazais, what is this hatred? Why would you hate someone? You're not allowed to hate someone. The Torah says you see the donkey of your enemy. What's your enemy? There's a Torah legislated enemy, and Chazal say in the Gemara, Shara oisai oiver avera, meaning you saw somebody commit a sin, and it's a real sin. It's arayos. V'hu yachid, and you're the only witness, eino yachal lahad, and therefore you cannot testify about him. So you saw someone violate arayos, and you're allowed to hate him, but you can't testify about it. V'soinei oisai al dvar avera, you could hate him for the sin he committed. And even so, even though you have a right to hate him, the Torah says, hey pal, snap out of your hatred, help the guy with the package. What do you mean help the guy? Shouldn't I maintain my hatred? No. The Torah is instructing, drop your hatred for the moment and help him. This is sort of emulating Hashem's Middah of lo Hechzik la'arapai. Va'afilu hachi amra Torah, ozoiv tazoiv imai. Help him. Shavoik yas tevelibach. Forsake what's in your heart. Ela mitzvah l'karev v'yisabe'ava. At this point in time, you need to draw him close with love. Ula yoyo b'darach zeh, perhaps it will help in this fashion. V'hainu mamish midazu, this is mamish, this midah of lo hechzik la'arapai, that God does not maintain forever His anger. Okay, Rabbi, say thank you everyone for joining. Be'ezus Hashem, tomorrow at 5 o'clock we will do the 6th midah. Wishing everyone a great day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Shkoyach everyone. Have a good day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.